Welcome to the Unfiltered podcast with hosts Mike Dalesandro and Jeff Angelo. Unfiltered is based in Clark County, Washington, and is focused on discussing local news and politics. This is episode 1, and our guest is Rob Frisina. And now, for the unreal, unrated, unequaled Clark County podcast, Unfiltered.
Welcome to Unfiltered. I'm Mike Dalesandro along with Jeff Angelo. Hey Jeff, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing today?
I am superb.
So, in-house today, we have Mr. Rob Frisina. He is the 17th Legislative District State Committeeman. He has also run for office recently. We're going to talk about some of the stuff he's been doing with himself over the past year here. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm good. Thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
I was excited to get you here.
Yeah.
I really was, because I've known you for a little while, and for people who don't know you, you have a lot of energy. Every time we talk, you have a certain amount of energy that just kind of is flowing through you. It's like I would compare it to the Flash. You know, when I think of the Flash, it's like a little ball of energy and just going all over the place.
If I were going to pick a superhero, I would have picked Iron Man. He was a bit of a philanthropist as well, but I'll take the Flash.
The Flash was quick. Yeah, you look like you're quick and can go places. So, Rob, some of the things that we're going to be discussing today, I mean, we don't want to leave anything on the table. We want to get a good grasp of what's happening around here. This is our first broadcast, so a lot to talk about. But the first things first, Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, like what drove you to get involved in politics? Has it always been a passion of yours? Is this something that just in the recent past has come up in your life, or how did you get involved?
So the way that I became involved in politics is through the Bernie Sanders campaign, and I think a lot of people already know that. It's not a surprise that Bernie got me up and off the couch and engaged me in the political process. And I think he did that for millions of people, and we've all kind of seen the benefits of that as we've seen these new people flow into the Democratic Party and into the political process and into civics in general in our community. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of activity. For me personally, I wasn't involved in politics. I grew up in a very small town. I wasn't educated about real history, and I know that now as I've started to educate myself as an adult to the real culture in America. And I found that probably the biggest barrier to entry in politics and in civics is education. So constantly like looking for opportunities to educate myself, educate people around me. And when I saw Bernie Sanders come on the scene, I hit a little later for me than it did for other people. I think this was June that he came on, and I didn't really pick up the signal until August when that first rally happened in Portland. And at that rally, I attended. My wife and I went, and Jody and I went to Portland. We saw, and I was familiar with him because I had lived in upstate New York in Plattsburgh, which is right on the other side of Lake Champlain. So if you're familiar with the geography of New York, you know that it's Burlington, Vermont's right on the other side. So I was familiar with his progressive policy, but I wasn't actively engaged at that time. So I never believed that we would have an opportunity to see what I consider an honest politician. I believe that he has done the very best job that you can walking a line as an independent for 30 years. He's got a catalog this big that many people didn't even know existed until he decided to run for president. So
now, just to clarify real quick on something that you said, seeing an honest politician, I want to make sure that we're clear here. He's not the only honest politician. He, in your mind, is he the only honest politician? I have to ask.
He's not the only honest politician.
Okay,
He's one of the most visible politicians with the largest and most robust catalog of dialogue around the topics that people are interested in and are bringing people into this process today. And he has been talking about these things, and in many cases, he's been the only person talking about these things over and over and over to people who were open to learning about that or were interested in those things. So it's encouraging to see someone draw people's attention to these and very important topics, myself included.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of Bernie Sanders. I was when he came in. I still remember, it must have been it was a long time ago at this point when he announced just him standing waterfront in the background, just on like a two-step podium in front of maybe 20 people. with hair flying up in the wind, just announcing his candidacy.
I remember I used to listen when we had the radio station here in Portland that was the liberal talk station. I can't remember the call signal for it, the call letters, but Tom Hartman was on there, and he would have brunch with Bernie, I think it was, once every so often. He'd bring him on and he would talk to him, and of course Tom Hartman's show used to be based in Vermont, and then he moved to Portland and was on the air here. But Bernie, Bernie's, that was always been consistent, always been...
Bernie has been huge, bringing about a new generation of voter. We're seeing a lot of turnout. Now, I think I even showed Rob, I showed you a little while back the picture. I had a random picture that I took at the caucus a while back, and you were sitting right off to the side. We didn't even know each other at the time. You were just sitting right off to the side. And there was so many people that turned out this year. It's just quite the year.
So what took you from being now engaged, fully engaged, to going from fully engaged to candidate? Because that is kind of a step.
Yeah, I think there was a progression that happened first. I didn't get to fully answer the question because we're just excited to talk about Bernie Sanders. I know he gets people fired up. But I think there was a progression. I mean, it was the connection that I made with people, the relationships that I was building through this process. I think you've probably heard the story, but for those who haven't, the way that I came into the process, I was called. I was phone banked like many other people, and I didn't answer the first couple of calls because it was a number that I didn't know, like many other people. Mm-hmm. I don't answer the phone when I don't know the number, right? Well, as you know, phone bankers are not supposed to leave voicemails. But in this particular case, the person who was reaching out to me did leave a voicemail on the second time. So I knew who the number was when they called, and I was interested, but I was a little unsure at the time. So when I did take the call, I could hear in this volunteer's voice that they really needed help, and so I wanted to check it out. And I went down to the coordinated campaign office, which was located in the Academy building downtown. So I'm walking up and I'm feeling the nervous energy of doing something for the first time, and I'm not really sure what to expect. And fortunately, this woman met me in the parking lot and led me into the building and explained kind of what the situation was. And I walked in there blind, thinking like I'm going to be seeing Julia Louise-Dreyfus running around like Veep, like energy, enthusiasm, like things are happening, man. We're doing work. And what I experienced was 3 people with their heads down, hammering keys and making phone calls and digging through paperwork. And that's when I made the connection for myself that if I want something different in my life, for my children, for people in my community, for my family, and for the future of this nation, that I have to get involved and I have to do some work. Mm-hmm. So Bernie gave me the confidence to take the first couple of steps.
Very nice. And what, walking away from it, so you ran a campaign,
Yep.
17th LD. There has to be some negatives and positives that
I ran a winning campaign.
No, I'm not saying.
So I get your question now.
Okay.
I guess the question. So to say this, I went into it with the idea that I was going to learn through this process. So I wanted to learn who the people were that were involved, how the system works, how the political process works. So I went into this with this express desire of understanding, so that I could help educate people around me on this process. I was the canary in this particular case, or if you will, the goldfinch that got flown into the mine.
So what do you take away for the future, though? What have you learned from your campaign that you can share with other people who may want to run as well? And what do you say to them?
Get
to
involved.
A viable candidate.
Stand up and speak out and show up. That's what you have to do. And I mean, there are different points throughout this process that we're skipping way past that would help encourage people. The first step in the political process is not knocking on somebody's door, man. It really isn't. It's making eye contact with somebody and encouraging them when you know that they're new and they just showed up. One of the things that I do and I encourage other people to do is when you see somebody who's in the room who's new, go out of your way to make sure that you encourage that person and you welcome them in and you find out why they're there and to let them know that help them find their place. It's not just about opening the door to the party, it's actively seeking out and interacting with people in a way that encourages them to not only get involved in the party, because I'm not looking to just fill the party with people. I want the right people. I want people who are here for the right reasons, who understand what we're fighting for, who have the same values, and who share the same level of, maybe not emotional energy that I have, because I'm very passionate about this, but people who share our core values and not only want to do work, but want to advocate for people in this party and in our community.
You're one of the most passionate people I know. That's why I was happy to bring you in, number one here. because I just like that with what you just said there, your passion comes through. So the next thing that I kind of want to go into a little bit here is the progressive movement that's happening. But what does it mean to be a progressive Democrat?
People that are going to look past the tough stuff and really dig in and hold their ground. They're not going to be apologists. They're not going to play respectability politics. They're going to ask for. They're going to step up to the table and they're going to ask for something, and they're going to hold to it. And if there are strings attached that are tied to corporate funds right now, I think that's probably one of the biggest differentiators between people who are progressive and people who find themselves to just be Democrats. I think there's a little greater flexibility on their part as it relates to being to compromise, and there's a little less that people are willing to compromise when it comes to people's values related to social justice and to economic justice and to climate justice. There are hard and fast lines that will not be crossed in the progressive movement. That's my impression.
That's a great impression. So you touched on big money out of politics.
Sure.
Just you mentioned it briefly when you were talking here. Among like 20 other things I was trying to rack my brain around. My brain runs a little bit slower than yours, especially the speed at which you talk
That's
sometimes.
Okay. I do talk about moving fast, walking fast, and talking fast. Motion creates emotion, though.
It doesn't help that you drink those coffees or whatever it is that you walk along with, man. I couldn't do it anymore. I'm all water, cherry Cokes out of my life.
No, I think what the one I think tied to that, what I wanted to ask Rob was we're in a two-party system right now, primarily a two-party system. Mm-hmm. So we have a lot of new people, or say newer people. I don't mean in a disrespectful way, but people that are new to the political process.
Sure.
So a lot of them identified with Bernie Sanders, who's an independent. Again, people coming into politics now, paying attention, probably more than they ever have. Identifying, okay, we're in a two-party system, and they have to make a choice. Am I a Democrat or am I a Republican? My question to you is, would you much rather see a broader assortment of parties, where we have more of a parliamentarian style of government, where we're going to bring people in, similar to Canada or other countries? The Whigs and Tories. No, but I mean, we have so many different views.
There's room for the Pirate Party here.
I mean, the Democratic Party, Republican Party house a lot of different views, a wide range of views. You talk about the progressives to the more, what you consider more moderate, or people call them corporate Democrats.
On both sides, there's.
Correct,
I mean, look at the Tea Party on the Republican side of things.
Is a two-party system really the way to go? I mean, or do we need more political parties?
It's clear that we need more political parties, and it's clear that people are asking for more options. It's clear that people want a better choice than the choices that we were given, both through the primary process and through the presidential election at a national level. And I think we saw here in Clark County the effects of a failed strategy that led all the way to the ground floor. So it's clear, if you want to see a Democrat in office, I guess that's my question to you. Would you like to see a Democrat leading in Clark County in any of these seats? I mean, we've seated 6 races that, with a different strategy, we may have had different results, and I do think that that's something that people are looking for. That's why they're out there. That's why they're knocking on doors. That's why they're making phone calls. That's why they're forming groups and starting nonprofits and building community around issues that are important to them. And yes, I think that as we grow and as we build with things through, as we look at the primary process, as we look at the caucus process, as we look at ranked choice voting, as we look at ways that we can identify processes that maybe they're not corrupt, but maybe they're broken and could be updated. I think people would like options that they feel best resonate with them. And in a two-party system, you're always going to be excluding somebody. And majority rule is not necessarily always the way to go. That 51% leaves a lot of people feeling like they have not been heard and they are not valued. And I think we can do better.
And so these separate groups represent us, and we also have the progressive. Forgive me, the Washington Progressive Caucus, thank you. We have that group as well, who aren't necessarily Democratic Party organizations. They're full of progressives, and the Democratic Party has progressives as well. So is that maybe a symptom of this, where people really would struggle to identify with a particular political party, but they're, they want to be engaged in the process.
Sure, I think when you're given two choices, you have to pick the one that you identify best with.
Okay.
And the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of the people. And if you read the platform, it says that they're the party of the people. But when you look at the elected leadership and the way that they vote and the things that they vote on, that doesn't always show up that way.
Okay.
So, but if we could trace back and we could, I think, move backwards just a little bit, I think people would like to. There is common themes on both sides. Yes, I do see that. If that's the point that you're trying to make, is that the progressives coming into the Democratic Party are very similar to the Tea Party. Is that what you're saying?
Well,
where there's maybe the Tea Party didn't have a place outside of the Republican Party.
I think there's some similarities, but I guess what I'm thinking of, and I probably should have said this up front. That's kind of bring this together. But there's so much energy and so many newer people new to the process involved, and how do we keep them engaged in a two-party system? Maybe that's where I should have went with this, because that's what we're in right now, right? And
how do you keep
that's not going to change overnight. I mean,
I had someone, real quick before you answer that, Rob, something that just keeps resonating with me is I had someone, and I'm not going to name names here, the name may come out down the road, but just within the past week, told me...
I know who it is. No.
You guys might feel you know who it is too. But he told me that, look, Jeff, we're in a three-party system. It is the Republicans, the Tea Partiers, the conservative Republicans, then you have these moderate Republicans and Democrats as the establishment in one,
okay.
And the third party is the progressives.
Okay.
And that's just the way it is. And I didn't even know what to take away from that. I mean, I had a few words to say about it because he's a friend, and I'd only say it to him. If someone else said it to me, I might not have said the same thing. But sometimes it's tough to hear that. I know there's a lot of change happening. I mean, we're not oblivious to it. There's a ton of stuff going on right now, and I like to think that we still are all one party here. I don't like thinking that, and maybe you're right, maybe we do need a 8, 10, 12, 50 party system. I'll be the catfish party. That's the, yeah. But, it's, right now, aren't we still under the same roof? Are we broken at this point? Can we be fixed? Do we want to be fixed? Where are we going here, Rob?
Man, if I had
all
the
on you,
answers,
man.
if I had the answer to that, I'd wrote a book. I'd be on a big boat sailing around someplace, right? No, I probably wouldn't actually be on a boat, but I think that's the question that we're all trying to solve. And I do, and at the heart of this thing, even when I'm frustrated, disappointed, upset, when I feel pressure and stress, I am able to ground myself in the fact that, like, there are good people out there that are working hard to try to answer that question and to solve these problems, even though they may not appear that way to me. We may be opposed in some way at some time. So but I want to take it back to your question to answer the question, like, how do you continue to engage and how do we find a way to better work together? I think it's a combination of things. There's no one way to solve this issue. There isn't a silver bullet that's going to make it better for everybody. Time is going to work for some people. Did you say, damn it? Damn it. But there's not a silver bullet. Sometimes it's going to, for some people, it'll probably take a little bit of time to heal. For some people, it's going to take, some space from the whole process. For other people, it's going to be that they've made that connection to that issue that's important to them, or to the person that inspires them in a way that gets them off of the couch, that gets them out of their house, that gets them into the building to educate themselves, or out into the street. And you've heard me talk about that. We vote with our feet, we vote in the street, right? It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's Planned Parenthood, whether it's the ACLU, whether it's CHAP, whether it's Represent Us, whether it's Portland Tenants United. Yes, cross the river. Yes, go and rally. Yes, educate yourself. Rally around the things that are happening over there that are that would benefit our community as well. Portland has a rental crisis that's happening. We have a rental crisis that's happening. We can learn from them. They can learn from us in some ways. But I think helping people make the connections and build the relationships. One of the things that I think I offer and that I have done that has helped accelerate what I am doing in the community to engage people is the fact that every day at work, what I do is teach people how to communicate effectively, how to build good relationships. and then take action on those things through people. But it's not going to happen through policy. It's really going to happen person to person to person, educating people, bringing more people into the process who have diverse attitudes and ideas and backgrounds and people of different ages and races and genders that can help create a community and a culture in which everybody feels comfortable in. And really, that's what the biggest thing is for me. This isn't about parties. It's not about, and we'll get to this when we talk about the state committee piece later, but for me, and what I hear other people saying, what they want is a change in culture. They want to shift from where we're at to a different place, and they want this party to be inclusive. And I think we need to think about what we want the Democratic Party to represent. And if it does represent all of those things in the platform, how do we bring that to life? And how do we create that atmosphere every day so that people can see it and feel it and they want to be a part of it?
Rob, I definitely appreciate that. Well, one thing that I heard you say is that, some people need to take a step back because they're hurt or they're upset about things. So one thing that I've noticed lately, we've had this election. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Do I wish Bernie was there right now? Are you kidding me? Look who's sitting there. Of course I wish Bernie was there right now. But it didn't freaking happen. So, do we need to get past this and kind of move on and look forward at the future? Or do we need to continue looking back at what happened recently here?
Well, those things aren't mutually exclusive. Why can't we do both? One of my favorite quotes from Nina Turner is that we have two hands. One to reach back to lift people up, and one to reach forward to pull ourselves forward, right? So, and it's, Jeff, you are a sassy man. I'll let Roy put some color to that later.
Dude, trust me, he has a lot of stuff to.
But you laid out a big thing, and I think there's both. We have to address it. We have to allow people an opportunity to heal and to have that moment where they are heard and they are able to reconcile that. And I think we can do both. I think we can create space for that discussion, but we do need to be cognizant of the time that we take to mire ourselves down in these details, because things are happening very quickly right now. And I think that's where a lot of the pressure is coming from. And it's clearly a tactic and a strategy that's being used by the Trump administration to distract, to disrupt, to create tension and anxiety for people. Typical gaslighting techniques that are easy to see through if you're familiar with them. But if you're not, to the political process, it's like being surrounded by Fox News 24 hours a day, and it's insane right now. Do I believe that there was a corrupt process in place to rig the primary? I can't say. There's a lot of evidence that supports the fact that we should go back and take a look at those processes and identify the pain points and fix them. And it was clear that there are things that were done incorrectly. There were things that were done improperly. There are instances that have been identified where people have violated rules that were created, and to not acknowledge that would be a disservice to the democratic process. How the hell are we going to hold the Republican Party and the Trump administration accountable when we can't even hold ourselves accountable? We have to be able to set the standard for ourselves as Democrats first before we can reach outside of our own home to tell other people. I am the type of person that will look in the mirror for a good long time, because that's my toughest competition. I'm not looking out the window to find somebody to blame. And I think, but we do have to address this. We've got to give people a safe, honest place to have those conversations, and that's what I've attempted to do through the back half of this year, keeping the community discussions alive. The community leader page is really just designed to take the energy that we had during the campaign and channel that into other activities. And as more people become engaged and as more people wake up and come to the process, they will have a place where they too can show up and share. And when we cover everything from like the most basic questions that people have. At the first forum that I attended, a woman walked in and asked for an explanation between Democrat, liberal, and progressive, and genuinely didn't know the answer, and we were able to help educate her on that. And for many people that may seem like a basic, but this is where some people are starting from. We're all at different points. It's important that we, as leaders in this party, meet people where they're at, not expect them to be where we want them to be. So to answer your question, every single person that comes into this party, it's your responsibility, Mike Dalesandro and Jeff Angelo and Roy Vallo. I want to pronounce it correctly, but I know everybody mispronounces it.
He's not allowed to
Three
talk.
strikes.
It's just Roy.
I know, that's why I'm doing it.
Roy.
So, but just Roy. But it's all of our responsibility to open the door and to create a space and to create a platform where people feel comfortable and safe, and it's our responsibility to shepherd people into this party and help them get connected to the issues that are important to them so that we can start winning races in Clark County.
Thanks.
No, it's
A lot. It is. It's a lot. One thing I pulled from it, and that I want to move into a little bit, is you are now the state committeeman of the 17th legislative district. So, what does that even mean? Like,
it means the Democratic Party better pay attention to Clark County.
There you go.
That's a good response. What are you supposed to do in this position? Because you have to remember, you and I, we kind of met each other at the same time. We were getting involved a little bit, and we didn't go different ways. I mean, we were on the same wavelength a little bit. Just you were over here, I was over here.
Yeah, I mean, I think through the whole process, I mean, I'm just following the path that's available to me. I'm looking for my channel. I'm trying to find my place in the political process as well. Remember, I was not engaged as a teen, as a child, through the education system. My parents were not politically active. I grew up in a very small community. I joined the military, where they deprogram you and teach you how to take orders really, really well. And then I got into retail, and I did one thing. And I've been doing it for 20 years, so I'm very skilled in that area. But I came into the process uneducated, but willing to put myself out there. I'm less concerned about how people feel about me than I am about doing the right thing.
Well, so as the state committee man, what do you need to be doing?
Well, I'll come back to that, but okay. I want to talk about the process, and this is why people in my community encourage me to step up and to be their voice in the state house race when we were looking at 2 Republicans and another Republican jumping into the race. And while I understand that Sam may have chosen to change his title, people in our community did not respond to that in the way that was supportive of that. They came, they knocked on the door, they saw what I was doing in the community, and they asked me to step up and do that. Same thing in this role as a state committee man. What I'm responsible for are the 80,000 plus voters that are in the 17th legislative district. I'm responsible for representing their voice at the Central Committee and making sure that the Central Committee is hearing what's happening in Clark County. And I do that through a variety of ways, hosting these forums, Facebook, cataloging things, having conversations. And through my line of work, I'm in and out of every major mall here. I'm walking and talking to people. I am the mayor of the mall in many places. And, so I'm familiar with most of the coffee shops around Vancouver and just about everywhere in between Medford, Oregon, and Tacoma, Washington. So it's about educating people. It's about taking this information that we have here, the things that we're doing in Clark County, and bringing it to the Central Committee and making sure that all of our voices are represented and heard in a way that allows us to all be included in this process.
To dovetail into that, as a state committeeman, you just recently had the reorg at the state level. So that was your first experience in that process, correct?
Yeah, it was. It was great.
So tell us about that process.
It was awesome. It was great to walk into the room and to hit the lobby, and you're nervous still. I keep talking about being nervous, and I'm gonna keep bringing that up because I want people to know that I get nervous too. People see me and they think that I'm a thing or that I have some special power because I'm standing in front of everyone. I don't. I have enough courage to get up and do it. And once I start talking, it starts to, the fear starts to subside a little bit. So I was a little nervous going into this. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and you couldn't get a lot of detail on, what was going to happen. I think because there were so many people who are new to the process. It was 70% is the number that I heard while I was there, new Central Committee members. Wow. So there's been a big shift. Yeah. But to walk into the room, I was kind of expecting some of the same tension that I have felt here and that we've talked about in the community. And I didn't feel that. I felt very encouraged. It was positive energy. There was a lot of momentum in the room. People were very excited to meet people and find out what was going on and what are you working on and how can we work together. Mm-hmm. So deep partnerships and not only that, but people who are reconnecting because they've all been engaged through the political process in some way, coming back together. So a bit of an odd family reunion in many ways, but it's great getting to meet your distant cousins.
Just don't date them.
Just don't date them. That's the only thing we ask.
This is Washington, not Western Virginia.
That's true.
Oh my goodness. So you briefly mentioned in the past that you had some military experience, mm-hmm. and that's something that I didn't know about you till recently. So could you, we may people listening to this that might not know that, because whatever it is, for whatever reason, Democrats, progressives get pegged as people that don't serve their country that really bothers me.
Sure.
That and I think I think as a progressive, I had many family members who've served, and so elaborate on that. What what branch you served in, and what you did.
So I joined the United States Marine Corps in 1995 on the delayed entry program. I was in high school.
Okay.
I went to what are called DEP meetings. So once a month I would go out to the recruiting station and I would work with the recruiters there to travel around to different malls or to school functions to educate people on the benefits of joining the military. And after high school, I joined right away, and I spent 4 years, 96 to 2000, with Headquarters Company 6 Marines down in Jacksonville, North Carolina. That's where I started to raise my family. You guys kind of heard some of this stuff, but that was my first real job, was being in the military, and I liked it. It was good for me. I joined the military because I had a child when I was 17. And I was looking for that discipline. I was looking for that stability and structure that this type of employment could apply, a government job. And my experience was a positive one. It was not wartime, so it was a peaceful enlistment. And at the end of my 4 years, I exited the Marine Corps and I moved back to New York.
Well, thank you for your service. So while we were up in Olympia, we had the reorg elections where everybody got together and chose the leadership team for the state Democratic Party moving forward. So how was that experience?
Rob Dolan is an amazing and incredibly funny human being.
And who's Rob Dolan?
He is the secretary for the State Central Committee.
Okay.
But aside from that, and I think he also did another really cool thing, and I wanted to bring this up early, was at the end of the meeting he did a great job of demonstrating another way that we can bring more people into the party and create inclusion and to allow for more people to participate in the process. He had his son sit on his lap. And I think that was an enormous gesture in a room where people take things away that are sometimes subtle and subconscious, and I think that's something that needs to shift. We need to start thinking about the working families and the single mothers that are part of this community that we live in, and creating the space that is comfortable for them to join. As far as the rest of the election process went, it was. I felt the enormity of this decision. It was not an easy decision to decide who's going to lead the Democratic Party in the state of Washington. It was. It felt deeply divided here, and it felt very consistent, 50-50, all the way up until the final day before we left. And one day I would wake up leaning a little bit to one candidate, and then I would wake up the next day and I'd be leaning in the other direction. And so my goal was to just continue to take on as much information as possible and to talk with as many people as I could. And I reached deep into the bench, people that have been here for a long time. I've been setting up one-on-ones with and having conversations and dialogue. And I was also meeting with people who are very new and new to the political process, as well as just coming into their own about their ideas of where we should go as a party. And then I utilized my time while I was there to meet with as many people as I could who have actually worked with these two people to find out, how do they really behave? What's important to them? What can we expect from them in the coming months? And in the end, Tina Podlodowski really, she's demonstrating all the things that you want to see in a great leader. The best part of this for me was that I don't think we could lose with either candidate. They were both very strong candidates. They're both equally qualified to do the job in many ways, but they're also uniquely qualified in very different ways. And I think when you look at what Tina did, she networked, she recruited, she went to work on a real campaign, she put together an actual platform, she looked to create diversity in that group. Her and Joe Pakudis put together a pretty robust platform, which has created a lot of dialogue and a lot of energy. And having an opportunity to watch how they both interacted with people through the process there, things that I heard from her that I didn't hear from Jackson were turning the power and turning the engagement back to the grassroots. And you could even hear that after she was elected through the process. One of the first things that she wanted to do was to add a committee, and the committee that she wants to add is a training and development committee, which is, and it would be an enormous benefit to everybody across the state of Washington. Because like we talked about earlier, that barrier being education and creating what those practices are going to look like to onboard people and bring them into the party and to get more people involved in the political process, but also leaning on the Central Committee, not just as a body of people who leave and come back for things. She talked about utilizing the first 90 days with the current executive board in place to assess the health of the organization and to see what we could keep, maybe what we need to do differently, and maybe what we want to continue, and then giving each different group of the Central Committee's work to go back and do with their community and bring it back to us. How do we want to do this together? So it was about inclusion, it was about diversity, it was about creating the culture that we want to have in the Democratic Party. She speaks to the majority of people who feel like they have not been heard, and it was great to be a part of it. Jackson Ravens was a great candidate, and he's done wonderful things for the party. I have a tremendous respect for him and all of the people who supported.
I'm sure he'll continue to do wonderful things for the party,
and I'm sure that he's going to stay involved. And I think that was another message that carried through with all of the people that were there, including Roger Flygar. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about him. He was a late candidate. He did come into the process, but he continued to talk about that both at the forum that we hosted here last Tuesday. And through the process, he's not going to go anywhere. He will find a place within the party to continue to encourage people, to educate, to help move things forward. So
are you optimistic about the leadership team's recognition? Southwest Washington's always kind of been challenged when it comes to getting funding and support from the state party down here. Do you think that they've heard your voice and heard other voices from here, the Tina and the other leadership team, about really focusing on Clark, helping put some focus on Clark County moving forward? Yeah,
I wish that Tina were here right now so she could tell you the last thing I actually said to her. She definitely heard what I said. She's a very gracious listener as well, and I like to talk, and you know that. But I do feel like she's heard people, and I think if you watch her interact with people, you'll see that she's a deep listener. She is an empathetic person who creates space for people to share how they really feel, and I think she understands the position that the state party is in and the growth that Clark County is experiencing and the need for more attention to be paid to people in this part of the state. They can see the growth, they can see the energy, they can see that we have the ability and the timing is right for us to take a more forward role. I will tell you that every time I introduced myself as a committeeman from the 17th or from Clark County, one thing that was consistent is everyone knows where Clark County is.
You're putting us on the map. Appreciate that. Well, that's great.
So breaking away now, it was obviously a great experience. Now, can someone like me who's not a committee man, I can go up there and experience it? Is that correct?
Yeah, anybody can go. Anybody can go and observe. They can get involved in the process. The only thing you're not allowed to do is vote during the committee meeting. But
what about drink? You're allowed to drink?
Certainly you can drink. There were plenty of hospitality suites. People were having fun, getting to know each other.
Time to get hospitable.
Guess who's going to the next reorg?
Yeah, all of a sudden I'm interested.
Jeff's going to be there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I promise you I will be at the next one.
I promise you I'll take you around and I'll introduce you to everybody that I know. I think that's another thing we can do. And I did want to call out the fact that I saw several people from Clark County leadership who previously held positions who were no longer in their seats but still took the long trip to Olympia, spent the weekend there, and took their people around networking and communicating with all of the people that were there. I think that's a behavior that I'd love to see demonstrated by more people, and a way for us to continue to keep that encouragement coming.
Sounds like you can definitely get a lot out of it by going up there.
And how long? I was say 2 years, right? I want to get that out there so everyone knew. How long this leadership team's in place?
2 years. Yep, 2 years, and we were elected in December.
Last thing here, Rob. So locally, a lot of stuff happened locally. I know that you're involved with a lot of things locally. You always seem to be involved with something right now. But there is what I see a lot of poverty on the streets of Clark County. There's a lot of homeless people out there right now. I know you're involved with one group, CHAP. What is CHAP?
CHAP is Concerned Humans Against Poverty.
And what are you guys trying to do?
Right now, focused on providing immediate resources to people in need. You know, everything from basic hygiene products to a hot meal. We've been doing a hot meal service down at 12th and Lincoln every Saturday for the last couple of months, and trying to help people connect with the resources that are available to them in the community.
Which is great, obviously. So anything that you guys take in, it immediately gets back out there on the street. You're putting it to use, I mean, just right away.
Yeah, pretty much. It's immediate needs. People need the things right now, whether it's propane, whether it's some basic medication, whether it's milk for the cereal that they have.
What about some other things like sleeping bags or towels? I'm just trying to top my head. Are these things that if people are going to be donating them to the Goodwill, which could wind up going to a national store
getting
sold. Is this something that you guys could use instead?
Most definitely. People need everything from the most basic elements all the way to housing, and that's unfortunately that is the home that they're in, and that's the space that they have available. A lot of those things. So basic camping supplies, sleeping bags, anything to keep people warm. Sometimes cardboard, tarps, things of that nature are the type of items that people will be donating, as well as warm clothes. Socks is one of the things that people that are living on the streets need the most and are one of the most requested items. So, but anything, whether it's a small dollar donation up to a secondhand sleeping bag is graciously accepted.
And how do they get in contact with your organization?
They can reach out to me directly through Facebook. There's a variety of different mediums. There's a CHAP Facebook group. There's also a website, chapvnc.org. So chapvnc.org, and you can check out, there's information on the mission, there's information on the activities that we have going up soon, there's a calendar of events on there, so you can get connected to the group, you can join us to come and serve, you could just donate, but everybody is accessible through the website.
Great.
Thanks, Rob. So I think we're about ready to wrap this up here. Do we have any events coming up that we need to get out there?
So there is an event coming up Monday, February 13th, the Clark County Democratic Central Committee meeting. It's a 6:30 p.m. meeting at the Labor Hall on Andrewson across from Winco. And should be a packed house.
Hopefully. It gets very hot in that room. So past that, we have a few other great people coming up here on the show within the next couple weeks.
Sweet.
I just want to let everyone know who it was really quick. We have Tanisha Harris. We have Eric Holt.
All right.
And so it'll be fun. I definitely, again, appreciate, Rob, you coming out and talking with us for a little while and giving us your time.
And being our first guest.
Thank you. We need to legitimize ourselves somehow.
Well, the goldfinch flew into the mine for a second time, so.
Nice.
I don't know if that's good or bad at this point.
Oh, Jesus.
So thank you all from all of us here at Unfiltered Podcast. We appreciate your time.
The Unfiltered Podcast is sponsored by the Clark County Democrats. Thank you for listening.